Have you seen all those power tool charging stations with all of the power tools hanging on the bottom, like this one, or like that one, or this one over here, or this one over here, or right there as well, or like this one down here, or like this one, or this one, or this one, or like this one, or this one, or this one right here, or this one right here. How about that one? How about that one? Or even that one, or this one right here, or that one. How about there? Well, I'm about to build a power tool charging station like no other you've seen before, and we're gonna do it right now. For this project, I decided to use Sketchup. This is my first time using Sketchup, and I decided to go with the paper version. This is called Sketchup Paper Version 1.0. It's still in the beta phase and may not be available in all areas, but if you go to sketchup.com and get out a piece of paper, you can follow along and do the same as I did. This power tool charging station is loaded with amenities unlike anything I have ever seen. It has side-mounted tool storage, hidden wire storage, grommets for wire ease of use, a magnetic latch for a forward-down opening storage shelf, recessed hidden magnets for storing my favorite bits, and handles for hassle-free transport. Let's get this building started. No shop project starts without cutting a bunch of plywood, and for this project, I used pine 3/4 inch plywood. Take note that I'm wearing my brand new Mr. Build It Courage and Sweat t-shirt. Mr. Build It is a respected member of the YouTube maker community. I highly recommend you go over to his channel and check out all the great renovations that he does. I was pretty pumped about this build. This is the first time that I get to use my DeWalt 20-volt max barrel grip jigsaw. This jigsaw cuts wood like butter. I can't even feel when the blade touches the wood. This is just a small power tool charging station, just to fit my needs for the meantime. I'll have an impact driver and a drill hanging on one side, and on the opposite side, I'm going to hang my multi-oscillating tool. In order to custom fit each of the slots for each of the tools, I had to measure just right to make sure that each of them would fit. Here I'm working with the top and bottom piece of the charging station. I used the super glue tape trick to make sure both of these pieces would be identical by applying the medium thickness Starbond glue and Starbond accelerator. I needed both of these pieces to be essentially identical, not exactly identical, and you'll find out that I made a little bit of mistake that I'm gonna have to fix later. I used my jigsaw to cut out the spaces where the drills would be hung. Getting those tight curves was a little tough, but in the end it worked out pretty good. Getting the two boards to separate with the super glue can be tough at times. Get a joint knife or some spackle knife you can slide in between the two boards and pry them apart. I used my rigid oscillating edge belt sander to bring the curve exactly to where I had sketched it. Then I followed with my Bosch trim router to give it a nice round over. That way the tool would sit just right. These rectangle holes are where the handles are going to stick through. I couldn't have been more pleased with how these plunge cuts went with this jigsaw. So smooth, so easy. I made a little mistake, but it's not something that's a big deal. Now, I was making carbon copies, right? So the plunge cut went really good.
The problem is,
I didn't need to do it on both of them. The second one, it's supposed to go over here. In fact, it's not even really going to be a plunge cut, it's going to be a notch because the handles are going to stick through at these points.
the good news is,
This is going to be the bottom shelf. So here I was going to do a dado, so I'll just do a little dado here, and this will be at the bottom and you'll never even see this. Don't tell anybody. I wanted to create a hiding place where the power strip could be available but not seen. I bought grommets that are 2 inches wide and have a Forstner bit that's 2 inches wide, so I used that as a help guide to measure the lid that I'm cutting out. I once again used my jigsaw, but this time I used it for 45-degree cuts. That way the lid would just sit right on top of that space and easily plucked out if I needed to access the power strip. Ultimately, I had to trim down those edges to make room for the grommets. For the lid, I set my table saw for 45-degree cuts. I trimmed off the edges and cut it to size. Then I used a 2-inch Forstner bit to make 2 different holes. That way, I could have 2 charging cords go into each grommet. For the handles, I used my trusty Kirkland tuna and speed squares to trace out the design that I was looking for. I used the same super glue tape trick to make sure that both of these pieces matched each other identically. I cut the remaining pieces off with my jigsaw, and of course the rigid oscillating belt spindle center was here for the rescue to make me look like a really good woodworker. I simply cannot give a high recommendation for this sander. I love it. It is not a bad price. Whatever they're selling it for in your area, buy it, because trust me, it's going to be an investment you won't regret. And of course, anytime I'm taking off this super glue matched pieces, trying to prime apart, it can be a little tough. Grab something, a straight edge, get in there, give a little elbow grease, you'll get it off. I gotta say, that looks pretty nice. It's gonna work out good. Here's the rectangle hole that shouldn't be here. I'm cutting the mini dados, and this is the bottom piece where the handle will then rest in. On the other side, I put a rabbet joint in where that handle will rest. This whole project is a mixture of rabbets and dados and here's and there's and little things that I did. I mean, I could have done just butt joints the whole time, but doing these shop projects allows me to practice on some of my skills. I love doing the dados, the rabbets, different joinery. This whole thing's gonna fit together almost like a jigsaw, I think. I used a 1/4 inch router bit to create a channel where I'm gonna put a piece of MDF. That MDF board is gonna hide the power strip, so you'll never really be able to see the power strip. It's my little secret compartment. The Milwaukee Multi-tool sits at 115 degrees. For that just to hang, we have this calibrated at 115 degrees. And we're gonna draw a line. Now that we got that set, we can draw a pattern that we like. There are a couple of different ways I would have chosen to make these cuts. The jigsaw is great, but if you look in the background, you can see that green machine back there. Well, that's my 17-inch brand new Grizzly bandsaw. And had that thing been completely set up, I would have used that to make these cuts. Of course, the sander, that's the sander, I need the sander, but I had to get 220 outlets put in, and I'm still fine-tuning that thing, so I'm really excited about showcasing that in some of my upcoming videos. Definitely a tool to behold. This is the face of the cupboard that's going to
open just like this.
Now, I put a dado channel in the back so that I can put magnets on this side and then take my favorite bits and set them right there. Pretty cool, huh? Problem is, the magnetization strength isn't up to my satisfaction. If you take a heavier bit, it falls right off. My plan is to redo this whole thing. I made a mistake, 2 mistakes. Number 1, I should have made this probably a little thinner, so a deeper groove. Number 2, I should have tested the strength before I epoxied the first 2 magnets. That would have been helpful. So I came up with a plan, and that is, of course, redo the whole thing, and I bought new magnets. They're in the mail, gonna be coming here real soon. I bought thicker magnets and a stronger magnetization strength. It's called N52. The rare earth magnets have a strength rating, and I did my research a little more
Thoroughly this time.
and got the ones that I think are gonna work really well. So they're coming. This is gonna get a little thinner. The magnetization strength is going to
Increase.
I got this really cool idea from Flint Designs on YouTube. I'm gonna leave a link in the description. Click on that. Go check out that guy's drill charging station because it's pretty cool. While I was waiting for those magnets to come in the mail, I had a few details still to wrap up. I used a 2-inch Forstner bit to put a grommet hole in the mid shelf as well as the bottom shelf. Notice the 2 little dado cuts on the left-hand side of this bottom piece. I decided to cut a support piece since there wouldn't be a lot of surface area contact for that left-hand support wall. So, needed to do a little fixing up. I had some scrap poplar laying around, so this is what I used for that piece. Thought it would work out great. Paint gray, that's all I needed. With the new cupboard face, I routed a channel with my 3/4 inch bit. This time I took 3 passes and I took it all the way down to the last ply. Now, to be honest with you, I didn't really intend to go this deep, but after playing with it a little bit, I realized that this is actually a really good depth and it's very sturdy. Just that one ply was very sturdy. I used my Ryobi drill press to put 2 holes in for the hardware with laser beam accuracy. I used my Craig pocket hole workstation to put pocket holes in the 2 back panels. Click on the video in the top right hand corner. I did a whole video on how I built this pocket hole workstation. I even included Kaizen foam to put all the pieces that go along with the pocket hole jig. The N52 rare earth magnets have now arrived, and it's time for the fun to begin. I must warn you though, you gotta be careful with these magnets. They're actually fragile, and I didn't really realize this when I got the first batch. If you disconnect them, because they are stuck to each other pretty good, they will collide with each other if they get too close, and as they collide they will snap in half, so just beware. I mixed a Gorilla Glue 2-part epoxy to adhere those magnets inside this routed channel. One thing I learned from Flint Designs is that he put his magnets with opposite polars. So if you flip the magnet around, they will pull apart from each other, and if you flip it the other way, they will draw to each other. So basically all of the magnets, as I lay them inside this channel, are pushing away from each other. If you put them in where they're attracted to each other, as you put your drill bits on the face of the cupboard panel, they will actually turn the bit sideways, and it's not really what you're going for. If you click on the video to Flint Designs, he goes over how that all works, so I definitely recommend that. Before I glue it up, I wanted to put it all together just to see how it all fit. In case there were any mistakes, I could work on those, but overall I think it came together pretty nicely. Positioning squares or the right accessories make glue ups easier than they have to be. I knew that order of operations for this particular glue up was critical. I needed to put the right piece in at the right time and let the glue do the work. Sometimes patience is the key. I used Titebond 2, which is an exterior-interior glue. I could have gone with Titebond 1, that would have been fine too since it's only an interior project. And for longer glue ups where you really need to take your time and you don't want it to set too fast, go for Titebond 3, even if it's not an exterior project. At this point in the project, I realized I may have bit off more than I could chew. But after a little bit of thought, I realized band clamps were the answer. I must say this is one of my prouder moments of the build, solving this little bit of a riddle, but I was able to get these pieces just right in the perfect position so that the multi-tool would hang just right. Most woodworkers wouldn't even bother with painting their shop projects. I guess that's where I differ from the rest. I think it looks really cool when you can match your shop project painting design to the tools that are actually on the shop project. So here's how I went about it. Go down to Home Depot or Lowe's, it doesn't really matter. Go to the counter and tell them you want a color match, and this is how you do it. I went to the tool aisle and got a Milwaukee tape measure and a DeWalt tape measure. I went to the counter at the paint center and said, I want this red and this yellow exactly matched. For $4, they gave me 7¼ ounces of paint, a sample size in satin. To mix things up a little bit, I used titanium silver spray paint by Rust-Oleum. I think it adds a certain je ne sais quoi to the project. If you're gonna add a little something, I think titanium silver is the way to go. For $4 to get the paint to match exactly to the tools that I have, you can't beat that. And as far as black is concerned, I just picked whatever black they had. I wasn't really concerned with color matching that. Without a protective coat, this paint is sure not to last when putting tools on and off. So I used a water-based polyurethane by Behr. Trust me, you're gonna need to put 3 coats on at least. I did 3 coats, I felt like that was enough, but don't go less than 3. For the cupboard hardware, I got some nuts and bolts and got a little creative. Thanks to my Dremel, I was able to cut off the ends of those eye bolts. Attaching the hardware to the cupboard ended up being a little tricky. I wanted it to become secure in the upright position by using a magnet, but lining up the magnets just right posed a little bit of a problem. I was able to solve this riddle by taking 2 pieces of tape and sticking them together in opposite ends. I closed the drawer, opened the drawer, and transferred it after the line that I had drawn onto the other side. I surprised myself, and this actually ended up working really well. I discovered that one magnet alone was not thick enough to create a connection, so I just made it 2-ply. Added 2 magnets. Well, the kit came with 4 magnets, so it was easy to adapt. And what power tool charging station would be complete without grommets? I felt like I needed to treat myself with this extra accessory, but it didn't come without having to make a little adjustment. 16 gauge finish nails slaps the cleat on the back, and this baby is going up on my French cleat tool wall. If you like this video, then click on the Craig Pocket Hole Jig workstation that I built. I painted that one too. Check it out.